Thanks for tuning in to leftcoastnews.net, news and information from the wacky, sometimes communist, liberal West Coast of the United States. For more, visit leftcoastnews.net. All right, well, here's your Olympia Watch podcast for the day. Just a few of the bills that were heard today in Olympia that you might be concerned about. SB 5427 concerning people who have been targeted or affected by hate crimes and bias incidents. Well, you know how Washington and the West Coast loves its hate crimes and bias incidents. We're always concerned about our bias incidents. They're going to establish a hate crime hotline direct to good old Sideshow Bob, Washington's Attorney General. And his office will investigate hate crimes and bias incidents independent of law enforcement. And they'll decide if you committed a hate crime or a bias incident and what that punishment should be. Sounds like a great idea. SB 5906, Opioid Epidemic campaigns. The Healthcare Authority and DOH, Department of Health, both produce campaigns related to drug use, including methamphetamines and fentanyl. Ongoing funding has been appropriated to DOH and HCA 3 times, $400,000 per fiscal year for opioid use prevention on Spanish language radio in the Yakima Valley. To DOH, $60,000 per fiscal year for a fentanyl campaign for youth. To DOH, $1 million per fiscal year for an opioid awareness campaign to educate youth and young adults of the prevalence and dangers associated with fentanyl in the illicit street drug supply to HCA. Maybe, just maybe, if these states, Washington included, didn't decriminalize drugs, this wouldn't be such an epidemic. Stop making it okay to use drugs. Stop allowing open drug use on the streets and encouraging illegal criminal behavior. SB 6021. You're going to love this one. This one requires DOC to provide individuals in its custody, that's the Washington State prison system, and confined in a correctional facility with voice communication services. Voice communication services may be supplemented with other communication services, including but not limited to video communication, electronic mail, or messaging services. To the extent voice communication services or any other communication services are provided, they must not be limited beyond program participation and routine facility procedures and must be provided free of charge to the person initiating and the person receiving the communication. DOC must at least maintain the same access to communication services in each correctional facility as DOC offered as of January 1st, 2024. DOC must provide free tablets to all individuals in its custody and maintain the same number of voice communication devices, specifically wall phones, in each housing unit as it had on January 1st, 2024. Tablets. Do you have a tablet? Do your kids have a tablet? Well, if you go to prison, you can have a free one to do, I'm sure, whatever you want with it. Is this prison or is this day camp? DOC is prohibited from receiving revenue, including any commission or fee, from the provision of voice communication services or any other communication services to any person confined in a correctional facility. DOC is prohibited from using the provision of voice communication services or any other communication services to persons in its custody and confined in a correctional facility to supplant in-person contact visits that any such person may be eligible to receive. Communication services shall not be used to replace the in-person visitation program. In addition to DOC's public website, information from the telecommunication and electronic media services contract must be posted prominently in housing units and made available on tablets. Instead of rates for facilitating each type of service, rates for all products and services covered by the contract with a detailed breakdown that include taxes, surcharges, fees, and any other fees must be prominently displayed in such areas. Requirements related to data and information the contractor must annually report to DOC are altered. The requirement to provide a total accounting of commissions provided to DOC is removed, as well as per call and connection surcharges. In addition to other data and information, the contractor must report to DOC data on usage of all telecommunication and electronic media services under the contract, including monthly call and message volume, voice communication services, mean real-time audio-only communication services, namely phone calls. Other communication services means communication services other than voice communications, including but not limited to video communication and electronic mail or messaging services. Telecommunication services include but are not limited to voice communication services, video communication services, videograms, and electronic mail or messaging services. Electronic media services include but are not limited to video clips, music, and entertainment. References to inmate are replaced with incarcerated individual because, we don't want to offend anybody or hurt anybody's feelings. This act may be known as the Connecting Families Act. Once again, Washington politicians supporting criminals, forgetting about victims' rights. How many of these inmates do you suppose will continue to contact their victims with their tablet once they're in? Especially people in on domestic violence charges or other, types of charges where they're harassing somebody, mainly females that happen to be on the outside. How many of these inmates will continue to contact their criminal associates, that are continuing to commit crimes on the outside, and will be able to control people from inside jail still? There is no way every inmate should be allowed to have a tablet. These people have committed crimes. They're incarcerated for a reason, punishment for those crimes. They should not be rewarded by having these things to keep themselves busy or to enjoy their time there. It's not meant to be enjoyed. Your tax dollars are going to pay for all those tablets. As of December 31st, 2023, there were 13,972 people in confinement with the Department of Corrections in Washington State. Say a tablet costs $100 each. That's $1.4 million spent on tablets for inmates. Tablets that are going to be misused or used to commit crimes, harass victims, be used as weapons, thrown around, broken. Your tax money wasted on what? How about you buy tablets for all the school kids in the state of Washington so they can do schoolwork on them? Kids that don't have access to stuff like that. Enough with these inmates and their rights. Well, sticking along the lines of rights for criminals and incarcerated individuals, SB 5981, the eligibility criteria are changed for when a person may petition ISRB for early release. Any person convicted of a crime committed prior to the person's 18th birthday may petition ISRB for early release after reaching the age of 24 or older, provided the person has not been convicted for any Class A or B felony offense committed after the person turned 18. The person has not committed a major infraction in the 12 months prior to the filing of the petition, and the current sentence being served is not for first-degree aggravated murder or a sex offense. DOC may provide rental vouchers to a person who successfully petitions ISRB for early release if rental assistance will allow the petitioner to safely release. DOC must maintain a list of housing providers who are authorized to receive rental vouchers. If more than 2 voucher recipients will be residing per dwelling unit, their rental vouchers may only be paid to a housing provider on DOC's list. For each successful petitioner who receives a rental voucher, DOC must gather data as recommended by the Washington State Institute for Public Policy in order to best demonstrate whether rental vouchers are effective in reducing recidivism. This act applies retroactively to persons incarcerated on the effective date of this act, regardless of the date of the offense or conviction. This act does not create any right or entitlement to release from incarceration before the end of a term of incarceration imposed by the courts, except you can petition for early release. Why are we so concerned in this state about letting people, especially juveniles, out early, about letting them get off early on their sentencing? We've all seen the rise in juvenile crime in the state of Washington because of the lax convictions on juveniles, because of the desire to not send them to prison in this state. Organized crime is using juveniles more often to commit crimes because they know that they're going to be treated lightly, because they're not going to go to jail for as long as an adult would. These kids are committing violent crimes and robberies and murders and drug crimes, and we're just doing everything we can to keep them out of custody. And on top of that, the state's going to make sure that they help pay their rent for them too, on your dime. Do you need rental assistance? Are you able to make your rental payments easily? Maybe some of this money going to these inmates should be used to assist the residents of the state of Washington who need assistance, because there's plenty of them. Oh, you wanted to hear about more prisoner rights? Well, SB 5893 is in regards to gate money. Persons releasing or discharging from the Department of Corrections custody must be supplied with suitable and presentable clothing in the sum of $40 for subsistence and transportation by the least expensive method of public transportation, not to exceed $100. The $40 for subsistence is commonly referred to as gate money. Legislation from 2023 changed the gate money amount to be no less than $40, and the 2023 to 2025 operating budget increased gate money from $40 to, get ready for this, $300. $300. Why? Why are we giving these inmates $300 when they walk out the door? That's over $4 million if every inmate in custody in Washington got their gate money right now. That's your tax money, again, being flushed down the toilet, given to these criminals, who most of which go out and just recommit crimes and end up back in the system. The state has no business spending our tax money on this sort of thing without our approval, at a minimum. These inmates get enough, these criminals get enough from our court system and enough breaks as it is. There are plenty of people struggling in this state who could use money, and it doesn't need to go to people who have committed crimes that are going to get out of jail and continue to commit crimes. SB 5770 is in regards to the 1% property tax revenue limit. For purposes of the revenue growth limit for state and local property taxes, the limit factor of 101% is replaced with a limit factor of 100% plus inflation and any banked inflation balance with a cap of 103%. Inflation is defined as the annual percentage increase in the consumer price index for all urban consumers in the western region for all items as provided for the most recent 12-month period by the United States Department of Labor by July 25th of the year before the taxes are payable. The term banked inflation balance means the accumulated inflation from prior years in excess of 3%. The ability for taxing districts with regular levies and a substantial need to adopt a resolution to use the growth factor of 101% instead of the IPD if the IPD is less than 1% is repealed. By September 1st of each year, the Department of Revenue must provide county assessors the limit factors. By October 1st of each year, county assessors must determine how the limit factor applies to each taxing district and notify each taxing district. Retired Persons Property Tax Relief Program. Property owners qualifying under the SPTE program would be exempt from 25% of Part 1 of the state levy. Non-shift language prevents the state tax rate from slightly increasing to offset the reduction in assessed value on the state tax roll due to the exemption. The exemption does not expire and is not subject to review by the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee. County Hospital Levy. The permit